Hey everybody, it's me, Angel Benton, and it's time for another Sudsy recap. I'm a little bit behind, I know, so we're going to be doing Days of Our Lives. I'm going to try to do 3 shows tonight. We'll see if that works. I don't know if it will or not, but we'll find out. But before we get to Young and the Restless, yesterday I saw Rogue One. Here's the thing, I'm a big Star Wars goob. I'm the first person to admit it. I love Star Wars. I'm one of the few people that really enjoyed the prequels. Actually, I watched all 3 prequels in a row during an election year, and it's really crazy how much that is really about politics. Like, it really is. So if you are having, the prequels, if you're having issues with the way the political landscape is lately, you should definitely watch the prequels of Star Wars. Just because if you watch the prequels first, you'll see it's very political. It's really crazy. Anyways, I saw Rogue One, and I'm not going to give you any spoilers, even though it's been out a while, and there are plenty of websites that give actual spoilers of Rogue One. I will just say this: it was way more depressing than I thought it would be, and a little more gruesome. So yeah, it was really just sad. It was really it really was sad. But it was good, but it was sad. It was a great movie. It was a great movie. Sadness aside, it was a wonderful movie. And it was a good addition to the Star Wars lexicon. No, Star Wars universe. Sorry, I've got an itch on my back. Okay, so Young and the Restless. So let's talk about Young and the Restless. I'm enjoying... Okay, so this past week... Let's see, what happened this past week? So this past week, a lot of hand-wringing about Devon, right? So Devon got in this accident the week before, and this week Well, first of all, I've got to say this. It was a little difficult to watch Young and the Restless this week, not because of anything on the show, but just because, like when we had that shooting in Fort Lauderdale, the network kept jumping in and out of the show for the special reports. It was very frustrating, right? So, anyways, that was I had a difficult time following because of that. And the network, CBS, I felt didn't do as good of a job as other networks had with. But I don't know. It's an unfortunate situation, and that is one of the few times that I agree with breaking into a soap. I mean, that's fine, because it's information that we need to know, and it's scary. Like I've got a lot of travel coming up for work, and I'm kind of scared. Someone could just open fire in a baggage claim. That's crazy. Anyways, okay, so that made it difficult to kind of see what was going on this week. So towards the end of the week, if I'm not that strong on what happened, that's why. All right, so basically what happened, in addition to all of that, Fenmore's is having this financial slump. They're in a lot of trouble. And I give Lauren credit because she has been a great businesswoman for many, many years, despite the fact that she's not one of those quote-unquote business tycoons like Jill or Victor or Jack or Ashley. Those are all people that, play the corporate game. And you don't realize that Lauren is also at the head of her game as well. And she's pretty fierce. But she's having issues, right? So her first big hire to try to get herself out of this slump is she hires Phyllis. So Phyllis is going to try to save Fenmore's. Meanwhile, Phyllis's ex-husband, Jack, is doing his best to try to do a hostile takeover of Fenmore's. That will be crazy. We'll see how that goes. I don't think that's going to end very well. But we'll see. Victor has kind of been laying low this past week. He wasn't really as front burner. Oh, that's what I wanted to talk about. Let's talk about a little bit. Okay, so last week, the week before, not this past week, but the one before that, they ended the week with a vintage episode. Now, here's the thing. Whenever they choose a vintage episode, they do it for a reason. Because they could pick any episode. The show's been on for 40 years. I mean, like, they could pick any episode. So they picked one from either the late 70s or early 80s, but it was very of that time period. And it was great because you did get to see all of these people, like Victor, Nikki, because it took place at their first wedding, Ashley, Paul, and we got to see Brock and Kay. What is that her name? Catherine. So, we got to see a lot of those people because most of them are still on the show today. But I don't think that's a reason why they brought her back. Or, I mean, why they brought back that particular episode. Why they aired that episode. Why that one? So I was fascinated as hell with this woman, Eve Howard, who is the woman who kind of, she was the one who was in disguise trying to get Nikki at the wedding. So I did a little research, because this was before I started watching the show, so I needed a little research. So my friend Cameo, shout out to Cameo, she was giving me a little bit of the 411, because she watched back then, and she was like, that was Eve Howard. And I was like, Howard? Is that Cole Howard's mother? And it is. So here's the scoop on Eve Howard. She had an affair. She was Victor's secretary. And she had an affair with Victor when he was married to his first wife, Julia, who was at the wedding to Nikki as well. And we've seen Julia because she came back. Remember they had that one episode where they had Victor with all of his wives, basically like Nick did with Sharon, right? Or with all of his ladies, Phyllis and Sharon and Grace and that chick, Amy. I knew I remember her name. I always think of her as Princess Greta on Days of Our Lives. So anyways, why am I so red? Lord. Right? Look at that. That is a little crazy. Oof. Anyways, so they did that with Victor, and they had all of Victor's ex-wives, Nikki and Julia and Leanna Love. And the thing about and I forgot, and I got to give Carolyn Hinsey from Soap Opera Digest credit, because she was like, I'm over GC Buzz, which was previously known as Restless Style, and hello, I've been saying that forever. And she's like, and before that, it was known as the Leanna Love Show. And you know what? She's right. I forgot about that. Even Restless Style was kind of a knockoff of the Leanna Love Show. So, anyways, so Victor had that episode where it was all about these women, and they were all there in real life, as opposed to Nick, who was hallucinating because he was caught in that bear trap. He actually had all these women there in real life. Anyways, so Eve Howard had an affair with Victor, with his first wife, Julia, and, he divorced Julia, and that's when Eve thought she was going to get some, and then he ends up marrying Nikki, and she was real pissed, and she went on the warpath. Now, she ended up having a kid, and she thought it was Victor's kid, and it ended up not being Victor's kid. How many times has that happened, too? Right? Diane Jenkins, right? Diane Jenkins thought, that she had Victor's son as well, and she ended up giving birth to Kyle. That's kind of when I started watching the show again recently, was right when Diane got murdered, and Deacon was the one who went to jail for it, even though it was Nikki that killed her. That's why I'm thinking Deacon's going to come back to the show for sure. Because they've mentioned him on the show, and he's not doing anything on Bold and the Beautiful, so I say bring him back to Young and the Restless for sure. For sure. Anyway, so I kind of did a little bit of digging, and Eve had this kid with Victor, and it ended up being, well, she thought it was with Victor, and it ended up being Cole. Cole comes to town and ends up falling for Victoria, and that's when Victor has to say, look, you can't do that because I'm both your father. And then it's the exact same thing that happened with Kyle and Summer, the exact same thing. God, they really do recycle their stories, don't they? Huh. Anyways, thank you so much for logging on today. I do appreciate it. Feel free to follow me on Twitter at Angel Benton, hashtag YR to talk Young and the Restless. You can also hashtag GH to talk General Hospital. And I will see you with that Sudsy recap soon. Peace out. Wubba, wubba, wubba.